Mike Pounds. Mike Pounds.
Welcome to the show. Around the nation, right here, TOT Nation. Jeff Walder here with you on this Tuesday. Welcome to the show. Welcome back after a long, extended time away. So, hope everybody had a great weekend. Yesterday, I was taking my car out to get fixed. So it's gonna take a while. So the thing about it, you guys know, I was in a car accident a couple of weeks ago. Somebody rear-ended me, smashed the back of my car. It took that long to get insurance and all that crap set up. And so yesterday, I took my car back to the dealership where I bought it, about an hour away, because they're the only ones that would actually give me a loaner car without having to spend money. Because I am notoriously cheap. Because I have to be, right? So I'm like super cheap. So I'm like, all right, what am I gonna do? Take the car back to the dealership so that I don't have to rent a car for however long it takes to fix my car. But they're saying like roughly about 3 to 4 days. And so I'm like, well, if I'm gonna have 3 to 4 days, I don't want to sit there and rent a car. It's gonna take forever. So that's why I was gone yesterday. So I took some time out to go and do that and get that stuff taken care of and all the insurance stuff and etc. And funny story, the loaner car that I have is actually better than the one I own. I know, right? TFW, when your loaner car is that much better, that much nicer than the one that you own. Hilarious. So that was my day yesterday. But we're back. We got lots of stories here. We'll have fun with our friend.
Mike Pounds.
That's right. Uh, we also have Saudi Arabia. Donald Trump has become Saudi Arabia's bitch. We got the story on that. So that's fun. Slash disastrous slash, oh my God, hide your kids, especially military aged ones, because here comes war with Iran. Lovely. Then we've got a focus on labor. We got a couple of stories about labor, including the GM strike, as well as Midwest manufacturing in general. And so, look, the reason I like to do these stories is, for one, you never hear them on cable news, right? You'll probably hear about the GM strike, whatever, but you don't have that perspective from working class, right? And, people that work in those factories. I've worked in manufacturing. I was in manufacturing for quite a few years, doing those jobs. And so I've got that perspective. And so I want to give my perspective on the GM strike, as well as the information, of course, and why there's a lot of people in the Midwest that are turning away from Donald Trump and going to someone else. Now, who? Well, that's a good question. So, I mean, that's going to be an interesting story. So you're going to love that. And if we have time, AOC makes an important endorsement. Ooh, okay, fun. All right, so there's that. Couple of notes here. So there's one thing that I wanted to talk about real quick, and that was the endorsement from the Working Families Party to Elizabeth Warren. So that happened over the weekend. And so I got a couple of words on that. Basically, bad. Not a good endorsement. I'm not saying Elizabeth Warren is bad, right? Elizabeth Warren is better than most of the other candidates in the race. She's better than all the establishment candidates, but she's not Bernie Sanders. And that's it. Bernie Sanders in 2016 was endorsed by the Working Families Party. Why? Because Bernie Sanders is the one that has consistently stood up for working families in policy and rhetoric. Now, I'm not saying that Elizabeth Warren also doesn't have the workers in mind, but in Bernie Sanders, they have the most strongest advocate for labor. And so I don't understand this endorsement. Now, what's sketchy about this, right, is that the Working Families Party, they took a vote, right? And so the vote ended up being like, what, 60%? But they won't release the totals between the management, the people that are running the Working Families Party, and the members of the Working Families Party. So they won't release the separate vote totals, seeing who voted for who. Now that's red flag to me. Like, wait, you released it last time. Back in 2016, you released the vote totals for each, the breakdown. This time, like, oh, no, we're not going to do that. Why? Is it because maybe the leaders voted for Elizabeth Warren? Now, the prevailing theory on that, of course, is like, well, Working Families Party decided that we're going to go, the managers, that's my guess. The managers said, look, we want to back someone who we think has a better shot at the White House, Elizabeth Warren. Now, I don't know what metric you're looking at, but both Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders are incredibly strong contenders. And I think Bernie Sanders, above anyone else, has the biggest shot at beating Donald Trump. So that's very interesting if they're using that sort of metric, right? I don't know the internal workings of the Working Family Party, but let's just say, suffice it to say, I am disappointed in their endorsement of Elizabeth Warren. Again, I'm not hating on Elizabeth Warren. I like Elizabeth Warren. I think she'd be a great vice president. I think she'd actually be a pretty decent president. But she's not Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is literally the best person for the job. The one who is going to bring us the most radical transformational change that this country desperately needs. And so, Working Families Party, what are you doing? If you want that kind of transformational change, then you will back the person, especially who is going to be the biggest ally to working families when it comes to labor rights, when it comes to these different plans that he has, Green New Deal, guaranteed, jobs, right? A jobs guarantee. All these different policies that Sanders has benefit working families more than some of the more half measures that Elizabeth Warren has. And I'm not knocking her by saying these are half measures. I'm just pointing out that they are not as ambitious and transformational as Senator Sanders and his proposals. Now, I guess some people might look at that and go, look, well, they're more capable of getting through Congress. You ain't getting nothing through Mitch McConnell. You ain't getting, not even the most milquetoast stuff is going to get through Mitch McConnell. So what you need is a political revolution. And that's why I say Bernie Sanders is more electable and more able to get this stuff through, because it's not just going to be him. It is going to be people who are running for office that are also like-minded that will affect the down ticket. You elect more progressives, more AOCs, you're going to get good progressive policy. So that's my thoughts on that. Very, very depressing endorsement. All right. Anyway, so that's my thoughts on that. Let's move on. Let's go to our friend Mike Pence. That nickname's gonna stick, man. It just is. All right. Now we have another new round of speculation on the fate of Vice President Mike Pence, otherwise known by his new nickname,
Mike Pounds.
Mike Pence. Anyway, now Vanity Fair reporter Gabriel Sherman had published a story on Monday. Now, this story should be familiar as we had actually recently reported on a similar story, and that Donald Trump's team is considering replacing Mike Pence on the 2020 ticket. Now, again, we've heard this before. So what's new? Well, first, let's go back and look at the original reporting. Now, this is from Axios reporter Jonathan Swan. Now, Swan found that Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner are driving a discussion to replace Pence with former U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley. So, again, Swan stands by his original reporting very, very strongly, right? As Trump would say. So, okay, very strongly standing by that reporting. And now you have other people who have talked to Gabriel Sherman running for Vanity Fair about the same thing. Well, that's interesting. Now, let's be fair. These are rumors, and I know these are rumors, but they're interesting rumors nonetheless. In fact, saying that they're rumors, we can go back to 2011 and have similar rumors about Obama maybe dumping Biden and replacing him with Hillary Clinton. Whew. Now, I'm not sure would have been bad or would have been worse at this point, but it would have been bad, right? But obviously, didn't happen, and rumors are just rumors in that case, right? Now, the reason I say in that case rumors are rumors, obviously it didn't happen, but even so, at the time, you could have looked at how President Barack Obama was running things, right? We had a president who wasn't dumb. Like him or not, agree with his policies or not, you can't say that Obama was not a smart person. Now, there's conventional wisdom in Washington, which used to be followed, that says that any mid-tenure VP replacement would be an absolute and utter disaster, which is probably why any of the rumors back in 2011 were immediately squashed, because it made absolutely no sense. Because any supposed benefits bringing in a new running mate to the ticket would almost certainly be negated by talk that the president's initial choice would be a mistake. Imagine the news cycle for Obama, right? Obama dumps Biden, replaces with crooked Hillary. And this would be back in 2011. Fox News wouldn't be able to stop talking about it. Well, fast forward now, right? And then you would have a similar news cycle, right? And it would feed into the narrative that is fairly true that Donald Trump can't stop backstabbing his own friends. I mean, how many times have we seen Donald Trump shiv someone in the back who shares his goals, who is very loyal in the establishment? For example, you had, now sort of blanking out on his name. Donald Trump has been through so many people that I can't even remember who they are. Jeff Sessions, the first one to come out and endorse President Trump, candidate Trump, before he became president. Stuck his neck out to what most of the people, even people like Lindsey Graham, were saying, oh my, crazy, loser, lunatic, not going to win. Jeff Sessions comes out and says, I'm on the Trump train. Okay, Jeff Sessions then gets a place in the administration. And then, just as quickly, since he recused himself from the Mueller investigation, because it would have been his ass, Trump shivs him in the back and removes him, fires him. Gone. Bye-bye, Jeff Sessions. Oops. That's just one example of him shivving his own allies. Scaramucci, at the time, was an ally. Gone. Now Scaramucci is anti-Trump. But before then, he was very, very pro-Trump. Enough to serve in the administration for 11 days. On and on and on. We've seen this. This is a pattern. It continues to happen. Not only that, but look, you want to talk about stability, right? Not a very stable genius. Okay. So when it comes to conventional wisdom of not firing people mid-administration, Trump says, hold my Diet Coke because I'm about to do something stupid. But again, speculation. Not exactly idle speculation, but still speculation, to be fair. Now, the reason that I say that is, again, there's been a lot of different reports from people who were either in the administration or close to the administration, close to the White House, and, different sourcing, right? That have said that that President Trump has privately regretted his decision to pick Mike Pence in 2016. I don't know if that's true. Again, don't know. Speculation. But there's others reporting that suggest that Trump is now fed up with Mike Pence for not defending him enough. Now that, much more credible. I could definitely see that because we have seen him get angry at people and fire people who do not defend him vigorously on cable news because that's all he cares about. So that, definitely more believable. Now, there's also a huge difference between their personality and disposition, which I think is fairly obvious. Most of his presidency, we've seen Mike Pence maybe in the background a couple of times. He'll make a speech now and then. Otherwise, he's basically just not there. Off somewhere. Maybe having dinner with mother. I don't know. And so, while Trump, of course, is all that people can see. Understandably so. And then, of course, you've got the polls. Disastrous polls for the Trump administration. You even have, it's so bad that you have Bernie Sanders and other Democrats that are beating Donald Trump in Texas. Red state, Texas. Now, maybe some of that has to do with demographics, and that's fair. Large Latino population, etc. But you got places where Bernie Sanders and Democrats are beating Donald Trump where they generally had no business beating Donald Trump. And let's be fair, Bernie Sanders is actually a great candidate too. But not to mention, you also have the fact that Donald Trump's incredibly unpopular. So, in fact, Sanders consistently beats Donald Trump in the polls, as well as Elizabeth Warren and even Joe Biden. Okay then, disaster. Now, if you're the Trump campaign and nothing you seem to be doing is working, and you're desperate, and the economy is in a slowdown, and your leader's unstable, well, think about what could happen. There could be absolute carnage. And what do you think he would do? I don't know. He could do anything. Trump Moore 2020. Roy Moore. Yikes. Now, one of the things, I know, could you imagine, right? But one of the things Sherman also noted in his piece is that according to a Republican close to the White House, like I said before, Trump is wishing the vice president, as I mentioned, would defend him more on TV. And again, that's the death note, right? If you're not defending Trump enough on television, oh boy. Citing a Republican in touch with Pence's camp, Sherman also wrote that Kushner and Ivanka threaten Mike every week that they're going to take him off the ticket to induce him to follow orders. That's also, yikes. And that's something, by the way, Ivanka and Jared would do. Why? Because they've done it before. They pushed out John Kelly. They didn't like John Kelly. They pushed out Steve Bannon. Well, I don't like Steve Bannon. Nobody should like Steve Bannon. But they still pushed him out. And then they also pushed out former Chief of Staff Reince Priebus. So that's what they do. Ivanka and Jared basically want to control how many people are in that inner circle. They want to have more control. They want to be the people that vet the people inside the administration because it's very powerful. And it helps their position in the fact that Donald Trump listens to them when they give advice. As terrible as it is, Trump does listen to them. But ultimately, of course, the decision usually falls with him or the last person to talk to him in the room. Be fair. So now, with all these reports, internally, Pence's camp is in a panic. Pence himself may have been so concerned about this that he stayed at one of Donald Trump's resorts that was 100 miles from where he was going to be. You know what that did? That effectively put money into Donald Trump's pockets to help alleviate that tension. Now, that's taking part in Donald Trump's corruption, which I think is an interesting thing. You want to win over Donald Trump, or try to, just put money in his pocket. He loves that. So from the outside, of course, it seems like a little bit of desperation on the part of Pence's camp. But who knows, right? With the Trump administration, it's still such a wild card that no one knows what's going to happen. Maybe Pence can somehow make up for his sins. Maybe. Or maybe not. We might see as the election comes closer and closer to 2020. Stay tuned. It's going to be an interesting ride. Okay. All right. Just saying. All right. Moving on. Let's go to the next one. People are increasingly becoming worried that we may be going to war with Iran on behalf of Saudi Arabia. Yikes. Now, over the last few days, tensions with Iran, as well as oil prices, have spiked over a recent attack on Saudi oil fields. Now, we don't know who did it, but the administration and the Saudis specifically are pointing the finger at Iran. Now, I don't know what happens. They use drones, apparently, and so the Trump administration is looking at that, and the Saudis are looking at that and saying, well, they're the only ones that have that technology, so it must be the Iranians. Now, look, to me, that doesn't make a lot of sense, considering the Iranian regime would like to have the sanctions lifted off them instead of making things worse by attacking other people. But you never know, right? Now, what's interesting about this is who actually does well and benefits from war with Iran. For one, it'd be Saudi Arabia. In fact, just the thought of having war with Iran makes the Saudis incredibly happy, and it also makes the oil companies happy. Again, you guys have all seen what's happened to the prices over the last few days. But what's interesting is President Trump made a curious admission. He said that U.S. military forces are both locked and loaded to hit whatever country Saudi Arabia thinks they attacked their oil fields. Now, let me give you the quote here. We are waiting to hear from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as to who they believe was the cause of this attack and under what terms we would proceed with a retaliatory strike. Now that makes me go, shit, here we go again. Another possible disastrous Mideast conflict. How about we not play the role of Saudi Arabia's enforcer? I mean, they are a brutal regime that still cuts the heads off of people for apostasy and witchcraft. I'm not saying Iran is nice either, right? The Iranian government also sucks. I mean, the mullahs, nobody likes the mullahs. I despise the mullahs. But at the same time, it doesn't make sense to see that they would drone Saudi oil fields, especially as if you as a country want to remove or have the economic sanctions removed from you so that you can sell oil. And so now, this is an interesting story that goes along with this, right? So before all this happened, it was reported by Axios that Trump had allegedly offered the country of Iran a $15 billion bailout. Now, why would he do that? Well, allegedly to get them to keep complying with the terms of the Iran deal. You know that Iran deal that he ripped up that he said was very, very terrible and not strong whatsoever? If this report is correct, then Trump is going like, I don't know, I'll put some money on the table for you because it turns out that deal's kind of awesome. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but the report says that the Iranians rejected that offer and would only accept total compliance with the agreement that the U.S. made with Iran. Then going back to the Obama-Iran deal. Fascinating. Now, the same report also mentions that was the last straw, that offer was the last straw for John Bolton. John Bolton, who wants to go to war with pretty much everyone, said, that's it. No, we're not going to offer them $15 billion and not have a war. No, I want my war. Well, too bad, John. You're not getting your war. Well, then again, maybe they will. Now, again, I don't know if any of this reporting is true. I'm taking it all with a cautious grain of salt. Let's be honest. But the thing is, Iran was actually very content with the Obama era deal. They were complying with the deal because it was a good deal. It was good for their economy. They had a boost. And then, of course, those sanctions, when they snapped back into place, massively hurt the Iranian economy. So that the whole idea of these things snapping back into place is what kept the Iranians from, violating that deal. Now, the rest of the countries who also signed on to the deal, they were very content with it. They did their best to stick with it. They're still trying to get Iran to stick with it. But Trump, it made it a lot harder since Trump decided to rip up that deal. So, disaster, right? So now all of this is thanks to Trump ripping up that agreement. He's an idiot. He and stupid people like Lindsey Graham. You know what Lindsey Graham is saying? We should go to war with Iran. To this day, if John McCain were still alive, John McCain would be with Lindsey Graham saying, let's go to war with Iran. That's all these neocon war hawks want, is another disastrous conflict in the Middle East. You think Iraq was bad? Iran, I think, is about 4 times the size of Iraq. And they actually have a fairly competent military and a Revolutionary Guard. So that would be an absolute bloodbath. Disaster. And all this would be in order to help out Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia. I mean, think about this. Donald Trump loves the Saudi prince, Mohammed bin Salman, right? And now he's thinking, and this is insane, of using the U.S. military as a weapon for one of the worst offenders of human rights on the planet, Saudi Arabia. And right now, and I've reported on this, right now, Saudi Arabia is still starving the country of Yemen. It's gross. It's disgusting. And yet here we are, we're helping them. Disaster. Now that has people outraged, of course. Now let me go to a tweet here from Chris Hayes. He's a MSNBC host, right? He said pretty bluntly, congratulations, members of the United States Armed Forces. Mohammed bin Salman is your new commander-in-chief. I messed that up. I have a tendency to call him Bin Salman. Sorry. Just what it is. Now, look, I'm not surprised by this. You guys aren't surprised. I'm not shocked to see an unstable person doing unstable things. In fact, it's kind of refreshingly honest while also being simultaneously terrifying. But on Monday, Trump said this, and this again shows what Trump thinks of this deal, right? Thinks of helping Saudi Arabia. He said, "quote Saudi Arabia pays cash. The whole idea of using our military to attack Iran on behalf of Saudi Arabia," and Trump says they pay cash. "Quote We would certainly help them." Trump said, noting that they've been a great ally. No, they haven't. What have they actually done as an ally? What has Saudi Arabia done to become an ally? Oh, right, they sell us cheap oil. Wow. And of course, that's what it is. But then he goes to say, quote, "They spend $400 billion in our country over the last number of years. $400 billion, that's 1.5 million jobs." I do not know where he gets any of these numbers. I just don't. Now, he also said that if the U.S. engages in military action against the country of Saudi Arabia's choosing, that they would be, quote, "very much involved in paying for that." Again, going back to paying cash. Quote, "This is something that is much different than other presidents would mention." The fact that they never talk about the country paying cash for our protection. He also said, "The Saudis are going to have a lot more of involvement in this if we decide to do something, and that includes payment, and they understand that fully." In case you were not clear about that, Trump wants to basically rent out our military to the Saudis so that we can go to war with Iran because Saudi Arabia despises Iran. This is both incredibly disturbing and potentially disastrous. Renting out our troops to a butcher like Mohammed Bonesaw Salman. And Trump is considering to do that. By the way, this guy, reason we call him Bonesaw is because he ordered the murder and dismemberment of a Washington Post journalist, Jamal Khashoggi. No, let's help those guys out. Why? Because they give us lots of money. No, you know who they give lots of money to? Donald Trump. They spent $400 million in Trump properties. That's why he loves them. That's why he's going to turn the military into basically a thing that other countries can rent to take out their enemies. Complete and utter disaster. And by the way, those of you who are unsure about this whole thing, why would Donald Trump help someone? Well, again, it has to do with money, not ideology. If it were about ideology, then absolutely no conservative would be in favor of this plan. Why? Because they practice the most radical, extreme form of Islam, Salafism. Okay? These are incredibly, yes, very, very conservative Sharia law. Now, they say they're against Sharia law, but in reality, of course, they want their own type of Christian Sharia. They don't allow women to, well, maybe they're starting to allow women to drive, so that's a small concession, right? But again, they still behead people for simple crimes. They cut off people's hands for stealing. They have an incredibly punitive justice system. Anyone who doesn't believe in their religion is basically murdered. So you can't be an atheist in Saudi Arabia, or you will be murdered. And so they're an incredibly repressive society, treating women like third-class citizens. Now, if you were a real conservative, you would look at that and say, well, I don't agree with that. Radical Islam. Why are we allied with that country? Why are they our friends? But we don't have real conservatives in this country, at least of all people in power. So you go, we want to talk about radical Islam, except for those guys. Those guys are okay because they sell us cheap oil. And the oil companies, our donors, love them. They absolutely love them. And so, look, they don't care about ideology. It's about the money. It's about the money. That's why, for example, 4 out of the 5 vetoes by the Trump administration were against efforts to reduce U.S. support for Saudi Arabia. And that has to do, of course, with the massive genocide and starvation of the country of Yemen. Where are you, conservatives? Where are the conservatives who despise radical Islam? Where are they? Where are they? Where are the conservatives that despise war? Where are they? Trump has buddied up with the most extreme Islamist government in the world and wants to use our troops to do their bidding, to fight their wars. Where are you? Where are you? Where's Dave Rubin? Where's the rest of them? They're going to stay silent because that's who they are. All they care about is money. All right. I'm going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We got labor news, so stay tuned for that. The GM strike, and of course, the Midwest not happy with the president's handling of manufacturing. So we'll come back with those stories. Stay right here around the nation. Please like and share the stream, and we'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to the show, Around the Nation, right here, TWT Nation. So a lot of you have been asking for Benjamin Netanyahu updates. The most recent thing that I could see is that the election is still up in the air. So this is according to reporting by the Jerusalem Post. Do you think they might have some sort of authority in this in this news? Um, all right. So the final unofficial results were expected on Wednesday, but according to an exit poll on Channel 13, whose pollster Camille Fuchs had the most accurate exit poll in the April election, Netanyahu's Likud party won 31 seats in a center-right bloc for a total of 54. The center-left of blue and white, Benny Gantz, won 58, and his party won 33. So you have an essential stalemate, which means they can't go on to form a government. And so that's interesting. So I don't know if this means there's going to be another election afterwards. I believe that's what happened last time, but this would be the second election in which neither side was able to pull out a victory enough to be able to form a government. So, So now there are other polls, exit polls, that gave the center right an advantage, but we're not entirely sure what's going to happen. So we're just going to have to keep thinking or watching this and seeing what actually happens. So now the big thing in this is that it turns out that turnout was really high. Arab turnout was up significantly higher from the 49% in the April 9th election. So you have Arab turnout that is making it a little bit harder for the Likud party, for the right wing, to be able to assert a victory, a clear-cut victory, to be able to form a government in Israel. So that's interesting. We're going to have to watch that. I'm sure results will continue to come in over the next couple of days and see who actually won this election. Fascinating stuff. Okay. Moving on, let's go to worker strike. General Motors workers just recently went on the largest labor strike in recent years. Now, it's being reported that nearly 50,000 UAW workers have stopped production at more than 50 GM facilities nationwide. Now, this is in order to spur new labor negotiations with the with the auto giant. Now, one of the reasons for these strikes is, of course, you have the normal union negotiating, which has fallen through. But one thing that they're hung up on is the fact that GM is not sharing its profitability with their workforce. Last year, the company pulled in about roughly $11 billion in pre-tax profits and about $35 billion over the last 3 years combined. So GM is actually doing very, very well. In fact, the CEO of GM is doing exceptionally well and now is under fire for not sharing that with the workers, with the workforce. In fact, these workers are still being treated as if they were in 2007. Now, let me give an example. It's Jessie Kelly. Jessie Kelly is a 29-year-old mother of one, and she's a member of the UAW and is out there striking. Now, she talked to the Huffington Post, and for one, she said, I'm more than able to go on strike for the next 3 months. You know, I'm in it for the long haul. That's awesome. Young person saying, no, I'm ready to do this. I need to do this so that I can better working conditions for not just me, but everyone else as well. And you're going to see that in a couple of the demands here that they're really getting hung up on. But she told the Huffington Post about one of the reasons, one of the impetuses for the strike. Quote, they shuffle us into a room every 6 months and praise these record-breaking profits, but then expect us to give back. We just do not understand right now why the company is still acting like we're in bankruptcy when for the last 4 years, they've been extremely profitable. They got bailed out by the government, remember, and then ended up paying back government loans, and now they're incredibly profitable. Now, I understand that companies will try to keep their costs low, especially labor costs. I get that, right? But you're doing pretty well. Even now that there's slightly slower auto sales, the switch to electric vehicles, but at the same time, they're doing way way better than 2007. Again, they're incredibly profitable, and so the union workers, they're looking at this and they're saying, "Wait, you're doing really well now. Back in 2007, we made a lot of concessions to make sure that the company could continue to survive through its bankruptcy process. Well, you're profitable. Well, why are we still being asked to do concessions?" Now, what concessions am I talking about? One of them includes a two-tier wage system. Now, right now, it actually takes newer workers about 8 years in order to reach the top pay rate of about $30 an hour, earned by longer-term veterans. Now, you might think, well, $30 an hour, that's a lot of money, right? It's technically lower middle wage. Lower middle class wages, right? So you're doing okay at $30 an hour, but you're not a rich person, right? You're sort of middle class. Now, it takes a long time for people to be able to reach that. And so the union members are saying, look, we would like to get people to get there a little bit faster. That seems fair, right? Now, one of the concessions was that newer workers never get there. Now, that's a compromise the union made as the company went towards bankruptcy. Now that that's over, they made they rolled back a little bit and said, okay, it's going to take people 8 years or 2 full union contracts in order to get to that pay rate. They're doing the same work, but they're getting paid less for it. Okay. And I guess they have to earn their way up to a higher wage. And it takes quite a while. Workers want to reduce that time. Now, another big issue with the workers is temp labor, right? Temp workers. The company says about 7% of its U.S. workforce is temporary workers, though the share can vary significantly from department to department, from shift to shift. Some workers temp for at least 2 years before transitioning to full-time and gaining a measure of job security, as well as better pay and benefits. Now, I worked as a temp before, so I feel this personally. When you're a temp, you're paid less, you don't have benefits, and you can be let go for any time for any reason. So, no job stability in that, okay? So now, I wasn't at GM, right? But I worked at a boat factory. And so I was a temp there for a few months, hurt myself, ended up getting let go not because of anything that I did, but because of the fact that I had a workplace injury. Thousands of temp workers face a similar situation all over the country. So now there are negotiations that are taking place, right? Now, union leadership has not shared the company's latest proposal with members. GM had disclosed a few pieces of its offer, including promises to allocate production to 2 facilities that have been idle, an overall investment of $7 billion in UAW represented plants, and worker bonuses of $8,000 for ratifying the contract. Now, the company says that's a strong offer, made in good faith. However, pay increases and benefits were not specified, nor were these 2 major issues. Excuse me. These 2 major issues were not addressed. How long it takes for a worker to reach max pay, and temp workers. So now, here's the thing. This is why I think that there's a lot of worker solidarity, right? People like Kelly care about this, as well as people like Beth Barrio. Now, she's a parts handler at GM's processing center in Burton, Michigan. And she said that guaranteeing that more temps convert to traditional status is a priority for her and her coworkers. Now, Barrio started with GM in 2014. She was a temp for about 18 months before becoming a full-time employee. She also has not reached the highest pay rate. So again, 2 issues, right? Now, HuffPost describes her as being out on the picket line at her plant on Monday and found it very difficult to convince temps to join the strike because they felt vulnerable. Now, she estimated that nearly half of the department in her evening shift is temporary because of the shift is less desirable. Okay. She said, quote, they have temps who come in and are next to people making twice what they make. A lot of them were scared to even walk out. We had to explain to them, if you walk out with us, the union is going to fight for you. But then added, hey, I'd be scared too. So again, that's what temp workers have to deal with, right? So now, Crane's Detroit Business also reported on Monday that GM wants workers to bear a significantly larger share of the healthcare burden. The workers generally have excellent health coverage, according to HuffPost, and are responsible for about 3 to 4% of the cost. According to Crane's, GM's initial offer would have hiked that share to about 15%, a proposal the union flat out rejected. Well, I don't blame them for that. From 3 to 4% to 15%. You know what would solve that problem? Not just labor negotiations, but Medicare for all. Medicare for all would actually take the burden off of those companies like GM and allow them to continue to pay their workers a fair wage and actually help these both the workers and the company. But absent from that, 15% is ridiculous. Barrio said, quote, they're trying to start eroding a lot of the progress our forefathers made through the union. And of course, that's what they want to do. Understand that GM is a big corporation that is answerable to its shareholders. Of course, nothing wrong with that. But the thing is, to balance out corporate power, you need people power. We need labor unions there to give people a voice. And labor unions, the biggest weapon that they have is a strike. And they are using that weapon to try and get a fair representation for their temp workers, who aren't even part of the union, by the way, but they're fighting for temp workers anyway, and they're fighting for their new employees. That's worker solidarity, man. Now, one last quote here from Kelly. Kind of shows her resolve. We as membership have prepared to say that this could be a long strike. We stood by GF in bankruptcy. We took concessions and we understood why we needed to at that time. If this was 2007, that would be understandable, but not now when it just looks like corporate greed. So they are willing to stand by to strike for as long as it takes to fight against corporate greed and ensure help for their fellow employees. This is why we need unions across the country. This is why union membership is starting to go up now, because people are seeing, once again, that it turns out, you know what, I actually do get fair representation and I do get camaraderie when I'm actually able to join a union, when I'm actually able to bargain collectively with the people that I work with for fair wages and fair working conditions. This country has for a long time needed a brand new labor movement. And hopefully stuff like this and the increased focus on corporate greed will finally get people to realize we need strong labor rights, and we'll start to defend those rights and to expand them. Because you know what? You know what made America great? Speaking of MAGA, right? Labor rights. Okay. Let me just do one quick story because I'm starting to lose my voice here. I'm not going to pull a Bernie, I hope, and lose my voice. But we'll do this one story, and then we'll go save the other one for tomorrow because it's a long one. Okay. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez out with a brand new endorsement. It is her first endorsement of a 2020 congressional primary challenger over a Democratic incumbent. Now, she is throwing her support behind progressive Marie Newman. Now, Marie Newman is running a primary challenge against conservative Dan Lipinski, conservative Democrat, by the way. Now, Newman is backed by the Justice Democrats, Justice Democrats, of course, is a progressive group. They originally ran AOC. They ran members of the squad, and they did really, really well, especially compared to what the establishment believed would happen. That no one would win, maybe one or two, but no, they had quite a few that actually won. Again, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, AOC, Ayanna Pressley, all those progressives that make up the squad, they're Justice Democrats. And so they're actually leading the charge when it comes to the conversation about policy. So they have made a gigantic impact. And now here comes AOC saying, I'm going to lend my star power to Marie Newman to get more progressives elected. Awesome. Now, AOC told the New York Times, quote, Newman is a textbook example of one of the ways we could do better, or we could be better as a party. To come from a deep blue seat and to be championing all the issues we need to be championing. And that's, of course, includes things like Medicare for all, free college, Green New Deal. Now, Newman also received two excellent endorsements. You have Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senator Bernie Sanders, both coming together to say, we want Marie Newman to win this election to beat Dan Lipinski in Illinois. We think he can do it. Now, Newman said in a statement that she's thrilled to receive AOC's support and hopes to work with her in Congress on policies focused on social, climate, and economic justice. I love it. She said, I've watched my community grow and progress, and Lipinski fall behind. This is about electing someone who knows this district, who will fight for bold progressive policies that will make life more affordable for everyone. That's what solidarity looks like. Progressives getting together and endorsing other progressives, and not just endorsing, but also working for other progressives. What a lot of people didn't know is that after AOC had won her race, or some of the other Justice Democrats and progressives who lost their race went to go work on other people's races or had staff that worked on other people's races. That's how we as progressives win, when we work together in order to elevate each other. That's how you beat the establishment. That's how we're going to beat the establishment, and how we're going to get Medicare for all, free college, and a Green New Deal. We work together, we win. We split apart, we lose. Remember that. Congrats to AOC and Marie Newman. Marie Newman for, of course, her excellent endorsement from very, very strong progressives. And, of course, AOC for changing the narrative. All right. That's it. That's all I got, guys. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. I want to give a couple of shout outs here to patrons real quick before we go. See Innocent. These are $5 members, level 3s. See Innocent, Capricious AF, Caramello, Cheryl, and Chris D. Thank you all for supporting independent progressive media. Sorry, I appreciate you guys more than ever. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, Nation. We'll see you guys tomorrow right here around the nation.